Thanks, guys. Okay, without further ado, let us hear from the panel. This is Janine, our moderator, and you can introduce yourself.
Well, hello, I'm Janine. Thank you for coming out tonight. I'm very excited. I'm the founder of a startup who's just closing its round. And so Caitlin was so nice to let me moderate this because she hopes that I know which questions to ask that interests you as well. There will also be a Q&A, so if something comes up during the panel, just note on the board. For the introduction of my panel, because I'm sure you've all read the very impressive bios, we are going to go less about the vita. They are going to introduce themselves with their name, and the area of Web3 investing that they can help you most with if you approach them after the panel. So I'm handing off to Dennis.
Hi, I'm Dennis, and as you can see, I really like green. But apart from that, internally within Consensus, I'm known as the cap table wizard. So whatever you might not know about cap tables, or what sort of impact the next round might have on your cap table, or where to even start, I'm happy to have a chat.
Awesome. Hi, everyone. I am Ruth. Take a seat.
Yeah, right next to you.
Cool. Yes, so I'm Ruth from Outlier Ventures. Happy to chat anything around getting fundraising ready. We provide it through a lot of 360 support, so feel free to grab me afterwards if you'd like.
Anna? One? Oh, we only have one that works, okay.
One? Okay. Hi everyone, I'm Anna. I'm busy lead at the Cointelegraph Accelerator. I know pretty much everything about marketing growth, marketing boost, and how to pump Bitcoin with one post on Twitter.
Eduardo, what's chasing you up again?
Hello. I'm Eduardo. I'm a senior associate here at Republic Europe. Been here for 3 years, and I basically help founders to raise investment in the platform, now tokenized and just traditional equity options.
Oh, this is gonna be fun. So since we have a lot of people who were not quite sure what the seed stages are, I'd love for one of you or two of you to go over it, how you define them, and maybe also, everybody knows how to look up a LinkedIn context, but like, where do you see the funding come from who in which stages, as like pre-seed, seed, Series A, and like a rough traction metric of where you expect the company to be as you're observing it in real life.
I think I will pass the answer to more professional speakers.
So just to confirm, what's this sort of like this stage where we like to?
No, like what do you see from like what is the pre-seed, what is the seed, what's the Series A and beyond, and where do you actually see the funding coming from in those stages?
Right. I don't like these type of terminologies, but anyways, pre-seed, I'd say idea stage, maybe not even an MVP. Seed stage, the founders will have already an MVP and start testing some good users on it, maybe some potential revenue streams that started. The Series A is where the maturity is, they're generating good cash flow on a monthly basis. And obviously Series B is just the company's generating millions of pounds of revenue on a yearly basis, and they're starting looking at transitioning to the next scale-up level. I think that's what I would say.
Yeah, I think that's a good summary. I mean, all the stages I would think quite holistically in terms of your fundraising strategy, and each one you might look at from different milestones. So obviously pre-seed starts at the very beginning. You might bring in your friends, family, if not before. So it's really your first kind of official round in some ways. And then starts to grow a bit more seed and post that as well.
And Outlier Ventures, would you say you are investing also in like pre-seed seed? Yeah, we can use a microphone, otherwise the people online don't hear us. At Outlier Ventures, do you already invest in pre-seed, or would you lean more towards the seed area?
We definitely do both. Pre-seed, seed for the accelerator, but then all the way up into helping companies with their token launch. So essentially going public. But I think it's probably a pretty even split between pre-seed and seed.
I would hand over to Dennis because you're like closer to the US as well. And when somebody tells you in Europe you're an early stage fund that's investing in contrarian founders, that most of the time they want to see some traction and you're already expected to have your pre-seed funding from angels or just from having capital. Where in Europe or where in the UK do you see the options for founders to, at pre-seed stage to get funding? Or is that all in the US and we just need to get our angels at the next consensus conference?
Well, from consensus perspective, we try to concentrate mostly on pre-seed and seed stage companies. And essentially when we think of our pre-seed investments, we try to be the first money in. So essentially that's the goal and the biggest differentiator. Whereas for seed, there might already be some sort of money in the capital of the company, be this in the form of angel funding, another accelerator, friends and family, or just using personal funds to essentially help the company grow. And from our investment perspective, we definitely have an even split, more or less, between pre-seed and seed companies. We also look across the entire spectrum of investment opportunities, also more late stage. But I tend to think essentially of Series A and beyond as more of a scaling tool and not necessarily as a proof of concept tool. So you use and utilize capital to scale the solution which already has some sort of proof in the market and already has ongoing traction for it.
Okay, perfect. So I made the mistake. I was born with parents without a trust fund. How do I, and I know you're an angel investor and you run a lot of events as well in the crypto conference space. If I have a great idea and I don't have the starting capital to fund my own pre-seed raise, what's the best way to approach angels and where do I even find them?
Come to Goldilocks VC Startup Connect, pitch to investors. But seriously, depends. It's quite a good question where we are, in Europe or US. In US, you just go to any Techstars, TechCrunch event, and you literally find any angels who are willing to invest within just a few seconds, few first souls that you share about your startup. Europe is quite different. Feel sorry to everyone who's trying to raise in Europe. From Ukraine, I'm trying to answer these questions for multiple teams all over the area. That's why I'm in London, that's why I'm in the UK, because we have A6 and Z. You can follow, for example, Sriram from A6 and Z, and you can meet him at Goldilocks. He's super responsive. Their team is super responsive, and judging from their recent portfolio, they quite keen to invest in very early stage. Coming down to earth, let's say not A6 and Z, right? I'm a very good friend with Outlier Ventures. I know Gabi, head of partnership for many, many years. I visited multiple events and I've seen so many idea stage founders at Outlier Ventures events and gatherings. So that's definitely proper people to talk. Fabric Ventures, super responsive. I know the team, I know Jan, I know Eleanor, and sometimes you can just reach them through LinkedIn and you can get some response as well. I hope we as a Cointelegraph will contribute into early stage system with easy to enter activities for idea stage entrepreneurs. For Cointelegraph Accelerator, VC Startup Connect is exactly events where I'm more than welcome early stage founders, entrepreneurs.
I've been to some of them. I've been to Dubai as well as one of the VC Connect ones. And one of the problems, obviously, when you're a startup and you're like a VC and founders event is that everybody's pitching and you have like maybe 10 to 20 seconds while the VC asks you what you're doing to convince them that your idea is actually worth it before they filter out. And back to what Jules was saying, often it's your communication issue or the way you present the problem and the solution that filters you out. Question to all of you who have experience getting pitched at various events. What's the best way to approach you or approach investors in general to actually get through that wall and maybe build a relationship or be able to actually get the idea across?
Sorry, I'll be quick. We are humans. We live in digital era, etc., but we are humans. Check few simple things. Is the potential investor thirsty, hungry, want to go to the bathroom probably after 1 hour of that panel? If all three questions like, no, he is not, then reach him and approach him. And don't try to pitch straightforward, trying to interrupt the space around the investor. Try to loop his attention with few words. If this person just said at the panel that he is a keen and real world asset, hey, I'm doing real work asset, right? Be useful and show to this potential investor that you made some investigation, that you know what he's investing in. Of course, you can believe in luck and chasing everyone, but the efficiency of those BD will be super low. So this is my simple advice. Once you pass this human check, right? So like water, hunger, and bathroom, try to loop attention with the interest of this person.
I would say if you find me on LinkedIn and you have a mutual connection and somebody can introduce me to that founder, I think it's just a way friendlier approach for me to let's say give it more time as we look into so many pitch decks and we get so many messages. I think that friendly introduction from somebody that I know, it's easier, but ultimately if you find me in an event and there's some drinks, I'd love to have a drink with you and just hear you out. That's it.
Cool. Yeah, so when I was hearing the question, so I guess how to break through, I feel like so much of information, it kind of travels under the guise of stories. So sometimes if you can start even by a story, it will capture me a little bit more. And it's things that are more memorable, I think. So even thinking about some pitches that end up coming into our portfolio, I still remember the stories today. And that ends up being actually an opener for their elevator pitch, because you communicate like the clear why. You've automatically got something that's a little bit different about what you're doing. And people love stories as well.
I think, if you were to have to break into an investor in 20 seconds, to me the best way would be to explain the problem that you're trying to solve. Because to me, every single startup should be solving something. And if it's a personal problem and if it's a personal issue that you yourself had to overcome at some point, be it successfully or not, and then you decided that there has to be a better way to do this, that I think is the most compelling part and the most memorable as well afterwards.
Yeah. We'll just keep this on us. Okay, so let's get into one of the next steps, which is like we have equity raises, we have token raises, and we have the way this affects the landscape as well. We were honing in earlier a little bit on how it obviously shortens the point where we see of when they get liquid and what they invest in. How do you see currently, so like this space moves so quickly? Early this year, I think, Zero Gravity raised like 35 million pre-seed on basically a deck and a token warrant. In Dubai, I was talking to early stage VCs, and they were like, we don't do token warrants anymore, we only do SAFs. Where do you see the market currently at for like token raises and for equity raises? And is it more going towards idea stage, so pre-seed and a deck, or is it more going towards seed and Series A, so like established companies with like maybe an MVP or even a bit of traction?
The market is at meme coins, let's be honest. Yeah, and if we're talking about immediate investment, it doesn't matter the stage, the meme coins. Coming back to more serious projects, SAFT is still the quickest way to attract tier 2 investors at the beginning. But if you are here for long, if it's serious infra like Symbiotic, like many others upcoming projects, investors absolutely fine with safe plus token warrant. So you just need to be clear with the market, what is your strategy? So for quick exit liquidity, of course, SAFT only, but we're not sure about how long this project will exist. But if we are here for long, if we are infra, definitely it doesn't matter for the investors. Is it safe plus token warrant or SAFT? That's from Coin to the Graph Accelerator and a family VC perspective.
Yeah, I feel like the market can always change. Sometimes it might have a preference for one thing or another, quarter on quarter. I feel like for this question, it's so important to also look at, you as a project of what are you building and where is the value accruing for that? Is it actually accruing more towards equity, or is it accruing to the token? We do not know yet where the value will accrue, in which case investor might want to see a safe plus token warrant. So it gives that flexibility that they'll still have coverage if you don't end up ever launching a token because it doesn't fit with the business model. So I feel like it's very dependent on your product strategy as well.
I think that if we try to reverse engineer it a little bit and think from the founder perspective, actually being on the market fundraising, that once you do find your ideal investor who is actually willing to lead the round, they will most likely know what their preferred way to invest is at this point in time. So I think keeping a bit of an open mind and remaining flexible as a founder, and then hearing what the investors actually think the best way for the project to fundraise, both in terms of the amount of capital required at any given stage, as well as the valuation requirements, etc. I think it's important to just remember that the market is very active and the market is very fast moving, so this might change one week to another, but not coming with a very fixed idea that look, we're only doing softs nowadays. We're not open to talking words or whatever. It's not necessarily the most important part of the pitching story.
That's true.
Just a quick one. I think what we see value on is founders that are developing the product publicly and just building a community and just being very communicative with the community. I think that's where what we do value on founders.
Because I think the problem also is you, as a founder, don't want to dump on your community or your project, but then you look at the market and people tell you, oh, I don't do vesting longer than 10 months, or I had an angel turn around and be like, oh, I need to be out of it by 6 months. And I was like, well, for everybody who doesn't know, vesting is when you buy tokens, they're locked, so that the investor can't just sell them on the market and ruin the price and dump on retail, as we say. So how do you recommend founders balancing the serious need capital to make the idea a reality and the market sometimes turning into absolute greed, being like 6 months vesting, 10 months vesting?
Yeah, so I feel like when it's your round, a lot of those details you should also, if you can find a lead investor and really agree those terms with your lead, then it becomes a lot easier. Then the follow-on investors, those sort of angels, they can, you've already had your lead come in and agree those things. So I think also when you're figuring out valuation, all of that, it's good to have that as a conversation with your lead, essentially.
I think fundraising is a two-way street in that sense, and as a founder coming into the process, you should have a certain set of terms or ideas around that you're comfortable with, and a certain group of investors which you think are going to be a good fit. And at the same time, it's not necessarily about just accepting every single check coming your way. It's as much about saying no as a founder as it's about saying yes. So,
Probably the hardest part.
Yeah. So knowing what the terms are going to be when investment does come to fruition, and knowing whether you're comfortable with giving up as much of each and everything along the way is as important in the process as the process itself.
Sorry, quick. I think Dennis knows more, but how we judge, how we evaluate the projects, the answer will be very depends on the type of the project. If it's yet another layer 1, layer 2, so they definitely have contain big piece of pie for incentivization with no investing, no law. They just need to spread over the community and let people trade as much as possible. If we're talking about deep tech infra, well, yes, vesting is preferable because they're here for long and they want to be as usable as possible. And for gamify, they have to balance between vesting and unlocks, is you want to fulfill your project with the blood as soon as possible. However, you want to keep audience, a little bit stressed, a little bit like waiting for the result and be incentivized to play, to contribute as much as possible. So there is no single answer. I would rather determine what kind of project you are, the role of the community in your project, the role of the investors in your project, and maybe you don't need any investors, maybe you just do node sales, as a lot of projects do right now as a new principle of investment that I'm happy to talk further.
Perfect. From token vesting to equity stakes at different value propositions. So one of my friends is a partner at A16Z. She brought a project that had gone through the London accelerator and had a 5% non-dilutionary clause. Non-dilutionary means that the equity stake never reduces, so this investor will have 5% of the company until it goes public. Now, existing that couldn't invest into that, but at the time, this looked very fair to the founder in exchange for what the accelerator promised. What do you think is a fair equity stake to give away for an accelerator or for a lead investor at your pre-seed and seed stage? And what are numbers that you think are hindering you from raising on follow-on investment at like a later stage?
I can start. I mean, from a traditional Web2 company, which is our expertise, we normally see a 15% to 20% equity offer at the first rounds, just because it's a higher risk round. So you need to offer something attractive to the investors.
Do you think that's a European perspective? Because
Probably.
European VCs are like, I got 20% at the seed stage, and every American is like, this company will never be able to follow on raise.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I feel like really evaluating and looking at your cap table and what you give away for the different rounds is really important. So it goes with the full fundraising strategy and also assessing where are you for your different stages and everything. So I think always be mindful of how you structure your cap table, what you give away for the different rounds, and also in your roadmap what you plan to hit to then raise the next one and a certain evaluation and everything like that. So yeah.
I think it's important to remember, right, that founders should think, in my opinion, from the perspective of how much capital you actually need at every given stage to get to the next stage. And then get to the level of comfort of how much equity you're willing to give up for that capital, which nicely ties into the valuation of the project at every given stage. And then remaining within these boundaries of comfort is a difficult act, for sure, but knowing at every single stage that you might require more capital in the future and you need to balance for that at the very beginning of your fundraising journey. I think it's important to know what does an accelerator bring to you as a founder and what we're looking for in every particular accelerator, be it this technical expertise or mentorship from particular people or access to the network of the broader group of companies behind it.
Or being able to stick orange down on your website.
Or that.
That might be worth 7%, you never know.
So I think it really depends on the goals of the founder, and it's important to keep in mind coming into the application to an accelerator to try to speak to the companies which have actually done in the past to be able to assess the actual value that was brought to the company by the accelerator itself. So disregarding the check, which typically comes with every single accelerator program in some shape or form in exchange for some share of equity, etc., I think it's very important to be able to assess the actual tangible experience of the previous founders who have undergone such a program and to speak to them and see, if it actually drives value or if it's not doing what it's promising to.
Speak to founders with the similar verticals. So I know that Point to the Grab is useful for B2C, any kind. For B2B, we're not that efficient. It's super hard to target a very narrow group of people. So just
do your DD as much as the VC and accelerator is doing their DD. From accelerators to fundraising in a different way. So Republic and Cedars always look a little bit to me like the I've had enough of VC and we're doing it ourselves version, which I very much like. So the underdog, sticking it out a little bit. What companies have you seen do very well at Republic or on Republic? Do I already need to have a big following? Can I build it with you guys? And when is the right time to utilize a platform like Republic?
Yeah, I guess the thing is that we're trying to become a complete private investment platform. So we work with businesses from early stage, pre-seed idea stage, up to pre-IPO. And we can add value to different types of businesses from different sectors and different stages. I think, our most successful case study was a company called Revolut back in 2017. We helped them raise from their community, about maybe 7,000 customers invested. We raised about $5 to $10 million, pounds. We obviously look for businesses that have already proved their concept, that have been very community engaged with their community, and we want their community to participate and become micro shareholders of the businesses. That's the value that we bring. We want to democratize access to private investments, and I think before we were using just equity crowdfunding tools, which is very manual and have a very complex administrative tasks. Now transitioning into doing everything on the blockchain by tokenization, which I think it's what will make this scalable.
If my startup has a token, does it still make sense to come to you for a raise, or should I just focus on my TGE? And
For sure, we can present the token sale to our investor network as well. And the good thing about Republic is that we're very heavily regulated by the FCA, the SEC in the US. So everything that we do is on a legit way. And what we can bring to you guys is Web2 investors into Web3. So I think that's a huge value that we can bring.
so save yourself from jail and the legal fees and do it for public.
I think so, yeah,
Perfect.
definitely.
Dennis, you're wearing the Gitcoin shirt, and I would love to hear a little bit about your perspective on grants, or maybe also on other form of investments rather than just the quote-unquote evil VCs.
Evil VCs, I like that. So I think when it comes to alternative ways to fund your startup, it's important to know the different options which exist out there. And many people, when they think, yes, I'm going to build a startup, I'm going to be a founder, I have this great idea, I need to raise VC capital as the first step, and that's not necessarily the best way to go about it, because VC can be very useful for certain types of businesses and very not useful for certain other types of businesses, right? And not necessarily every business needs to scale to ridiculous heights to be able to be a successful business and for you to be able to be a successful founder. And when it comes to grants, it's definitely one of the options, particularly popularized in the Web3 space, but also outside of it. There are many different ways to fundraise without VC assistance, and if you want to chat about that, do find me after the panel as well.
Perfect. Last question, and then I will move into Q&A, which is, crypto is a bit of the network, and VC fundraising in general, if you look at the San Francisco resources, always says, oh, don't ask me who I should introduce you to, ask me the specific person that you went to my LinkedIn. If I'm coming to crypto and I don't have a network, and I might be building a use case, I'm thinking maybe of decentralized science, or using crypto to do a thing outside of it, so I don't necessarily know the landscape in depth for like every person. What's the best place to find out who I should ask somebody else to introduce me to? And what's the best way to like build the network to get into the circles that fund for that right angel check, so that when I then meet somebody and I ask, don't need to say introduce me to someone who does this, and I can say introduce me to X.
Find supporters who will be involved in your success. If you start to build out of, I don't know, new ecosystem, so they have brilliant ideas, they have brilliant teams, and if you're a new ecosystem builder, they will involve you in multiple events where you will meet other people. Try to find 2-3 credible people you rely on their opinion on, and just ask to be introduced to, because just this cold introductions, cold outreach doesn't work that much. So I will respond highly to people that I'm introduced to my friends, investors that I know. So you are here not from nowhere, you are here from some ecosystem. I just seen some Solana developers. So use your ecosystem you start to work from and try to build this network out of credible BD like me out of this network.
I think a bit of a contrarian opinion here, but sometimes the best way to fundraise is not to fundraise at all.
We're oversubscribed, like we're not fundraising right now, I'm sorry, I'm closing the round.
Because sometimes, as a founder, it's important, if you do have the resources and you do have the capacity to actually concentrate on your product, to concentrate on your users, to concentrate on iterating on that VCs will come themselves. And sometimes looking for investors and spending all your free time fundraising, going to events, mingling, and in this endless circle of successful and not so successful cold outreach, warm outreach, etc. Sometimes it's a good idea to just pause and go back to the basics and actually build something.
Okay, perfect. We would now move to Q&A. I have one small question, because I know we have a lot of founders, and I know you're really, really excited and eager to talk about your startup in public. Please don't use the Q&A to just pitch your startup. Please, please, please make sure there's actually a question in it, and the info about your company is relevant to the question. You can find them after the panel and pitch them there, or maybe bring them a drink after the panel to build a relationship and execute some of those lovely tips we have.
Who's got a question?
My friend is a founder, and he's wondering if he should take his team to Singapore for some breakpoint and token 2024. What's your opinion on this? On spending company money on it? He's looking for funding, of course.
It's definitely one of the biggest events for the whole industry. Try to find the guide. I think we need guidance in the business development, because when you even just enter Solana Point, it's a big venue with more than 2,000 people. So try to check the lineup, write the speakers that you want to talk to, text to BDs, they're way more responsive rather than the CEO, CTO, CPO. And if there are any competition, any pitch contest, I will have one with Cointelegraph, another one with Paladin Ventures. There are multiple forums, and this is the best way to gain more the visibilities. So investors like me, we will check the lists, and your name will not sound that new for us. I check all VC lists that we receive for the events. That's my advice.
Yeah, I think when it comes to any big crypto conference, it's important to come prepared. So you need to know what sort of people you're looking for and try to connect with these people before the conference through various different means. Sometimes there's a networking app which is advertised by the organizer. Sometimes just reaching out and asking, look, you're going to talk in 2049 or something. And connecting beforehand and trying to pre-book some time, because these events tend to get really busy. And there are so many different side events going on around them that people are just going to run around town endlessly.
I'm going to challenge you. I closed my biggest check at the Barra rave last week at ECC at the cloakroom. So maybe just show up to the parties and know who's like the founder of Solana or the founder of Barrachain or the founder of Cardano or whatever else is currently very liquid enough.
But still, do your research before.
Yeah,
Right?
but
So know the people you want to approach and know what you
Fair enough.
know what you're coming to the event for. Right?
Those
So
FPMs never work for me, but maybe they work for some people. Maybe it's my outreach. That could be. Next, we have the next question. I think Caitlin picked someone.
So, just a generalization, right? Generally, Web3 has a product problem. So typically, you see founders who are actually just building tech, and they're building it for the love of the tech. So in such cases where there isn't product hygiene, how do you assess a startup, right? So where there isn't a solid go-to-market, there isn't a solid roadmap about taking a product to users, how do you actually go about assessing whether a project is viable or not?
This is my question. Yeah.
First of all, hi. I'm glad you came. So I like serotonin a lot, one of the biggest marketing agencies. I like the book by Amanda Cassatt about specific marketing at Web3 space. So even if you're the giants builders who talk to each other only in Discord, you still have some sort of community, even Deborah's, right? So let's start with the community first and scale. Let's try, let's build, implement, make decisions, etc., etc. That's step number one. Step number two, if you are introverts, degens who doesn't know how to push the product forward, time to hire CMO or be a part of some marketing agency. This is what you need money for, and this is absolutely okay to say, hey, we are builders and we don't know how to sell. Please help us. So serotonin is number one out of my list. For degens, I like 8 courses. They really knows how to push. They help with Tensor. I don't know if you're familiar with this project, but this marketing agency helped to explain quite hard determines about GPU, AI, etc. to broaden audience. They help to pump the token from 0 point something up to 500. The toppest mark was 800 something. So marketing people is someone that you will have to deal with, even if you are introvert and diligent. And of course, for Telegram Accelerator, we are perfect for such teams because we are your hands-on tool how to deliver the message to the broader audience. More questions?
Anyone here?
Yeah, well, question for everyone. So when like a project founder approaches you and they're saying like, oh, hey, like I'm building this project, I'm looking for funding. What are some like initial signs that you're looking for where you go, oh, okay, like I'm actually interested and I actually want to pursue, you know, continue talking with this project and look to see any opportunities in actually providing fundraising?
I'd say just share quick and brief like traction stats. Where's the stage of the development? What's the stage of your community? And just from that, I can just understand whether this is something that I would be interested in having a conversation on.
Yeah, I would say there's two things when you are earlier stage, but before you've got some of the traction that is easier to prove. One is really highlighting what's your unique value proposition. It sounds obvious, but sometimes you hear a lot of the same words, like another decentralized something. So really trying to crisply highlight what that UVP is important. And then I'd say secondly is also really highlighting the team. So why are you the right team to also deliver on this? So almost when you're pre-product market fit, trying to highlight that you are almost like product founder fit. So why are you the right founding team to be building this product? So have you got the background or experience relevant to the vertical? Say if it's DeSci, you come from that kind of angle and then you're going in to do a Web3 DeSci project. And that will, I think make an investor very interested.
I think I will add to that just keeping things very simple from the very beginning and making sure that you actually can articulate what problem you're trying to solve and that you're the right person to be solving this problem. And then depending on the stage where you add, traction, stats, and solution specifics, etc., can be more or less important at this stage. But I think for every startup, to me, the most important thing is, are you actually passionate about solving this problem, or are you just trying to find a problem to sort of solve and fundraise around and do something which is not necessarily a very big passionate process?
If you want to attract my attention, say that you will have Binance listing, that Paramet Ventures is driving you around, and you have some CTO from Consensus.
How do we get there? Okay, next question, I think.
Kind of sticking to what you were saying, going a little bit further now. Like when we do have a debt, what data are you looking for in the debt for you to be like, this is something to get back to? I'm interested because it's making it nice and pretty, but like, what do you actually guys want to see in the debt?
Investors spend on average less than 2 minutes per deck, in case you didn't know that. But I'm now going to hand this over to our experts.
I'm a fan of Y Combinator approach, like 10 slides deck. I really respect the scheme and highly recommend you to follow those open class. You can easily find this in YouTube with very simple strategy how to tell about your project. But how we look through the decks according to the graph, first, founders, team. If they're credible, then we will look at the explanation, what is it? If we can retell to each other what the sense of the company means that you deliver your message clearly. Number 3, traction. Number 4, partnership. That's the algorithm for Telegram Accelerator.
Besides all of that, I think the way that you sell yourself and tell your story also tells a lot about yourself as a founder. And I think if the more smooth, efficient you are when pitching, it just feels that you have practice and you have those sales skills that every founder needs.
So there is the classic kind of formula in a way of, problem, solution, market. I still feel like those are the key things to get an idea of what you're building. So I'll go straight to problem, solution, market, team, and then the rest is thinking about in the storytelling. So how do you weave this together in a way that conveys also the message that you want?
I think it's important to keep in mind the level of uncertainty when it comes to early stage investing, not just in Web3, but in any industry, makes every single pitch deck exercise for an investor almost a multiplication exercise where you look at team, you look at product, you look at market, etc. And instead of just adding this as sum of the parts to be able to sort of evaluate the proposition, I almost feel like you're multiplying it. And if every single one of them is a zero, then we have a massive problem, right? So try to think through the narrative of what you're trying to do and whether every single part of your deck supports that narrative along the way, that the team is right, the problem is big, the solution is the best out there, or is going to be the best out there. And try to make sure that it all kind of works together and not necessarily against each and every moving piece.
One final question.
How important is jurisdiction for investing? So where you're incorporating the company, particularly in the context of blockchain, obviously some environments are more forgiving than others. So I'd just like to know if you are incorporating or thinking about expanding your incorporation structure, are there like no-go areas, or just give a bit of color on that? Thank you.
I think when it comes to precisely that once again, reverse engineering the problem that once you do approach the investors will always tell you their preferred jurisdiction to work with and the preferred way to set up a company if you haven't already done so. So holding on to actually incorporating and moving on with an entity creation and everything before you actually speak to investors, I think is a better approach to the problem. And the shorter answer is it depends.
I defer to the legal people in the house to answer, but every jurisdiction has pros and cons. So
It just depends. I work a lot with Delaware C Corp. Seems like the most straightforward one. UK corporations as well that are received by investors, but it all depends where your project is, where you're from, and what type of investors are you looking to present and to get involved into your journey.
In terms of legal, forget about Europe and Eastern Europe. In terms of any kind of legislation, you can start from any offshore zone. It really doesn't matter. Once you raise seed, Series A, your lead investor will tell you where to register. That's it.
No, I can just confirm I was just reincorporated to the US, which is the weirdest thing ever to do as a crypto startup. Our lead investor very much wanted it, and so we bent over backwards and we did the thing. And now my legal counsel, who's in the room somewhere, is very, very worried and not very happy. That's a problem for our seed race.
Just my advice, because I've also had a startup hat, try to get the cheapest and fastest legislation in the beginning, raise the form, and then rely on your lead investor.
Well, I want to thank our wonderful panelists very much for their time and Catlin and the whole Crypto Mondays team for putting together this wonderful panel. Everyone else for showing up. And are we going back to networking and enjoying the drinks?
We are going back to networking. I'd like to get a huge round of applause for our moderator, Janine.